Earlier, we reported on the Supreme Court's decision not to hear the Trump administration's appeal concerning DACA, the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals program. The decision voids a March 5th deadline to terminate the program set by President Trump. For more on the fight for Dreamers legislation, our guest is Tamika Mallory. She's the co-president of the Women's March. Her organization is gathering with others tomorrow in Washington for a day of action. Tamika, thanks so much for being with us.
Thanks for having me.
Let's begin with DACA.
Yeah.
Do you think that this decision by the Supreme Court takes pressure off the Congress to act?
No, well, it shouldn't, and that's why we're still going forward with our action tomorrow. Obviously, we're happy that something happened that is positive today, but what we know about this administration, as we've seen with the Muslim ban and with health care and other things, they continue to come back, and they keep trying different tactics to be able to really devastate people's lives. And so we cannot allow anyone to be comfortable. We need to make sure that there's some permanent protection for all of the young people who need to be able to stay here in this country.
Given the court schedule, it seems likely that this couldn't come before the Supreme Court again for at least a year.
Right.
Do you think this represents a blow to the Trump administration, which was determined to end this program?
Yeah, I mean, I think it is a blow to them that, you know, we're all saying that what they were doing was unconstitutional. It really is a human rights violation. But at the same time, we cannot put anything past them to think that they will somehow go away. We believe that they will continue to work on other tactics to be able to get to the same result, and we can't allow that to happen. We want to see that ICE stops sort of terrorizing communities and being, you know, we've been seeing them getting on buses and Amtrak trains, you know, pulling people in very, very quiet and private spaces out, and that is very dangerous, and so we can't let up on this issue.
Well, it's interesting you raise ICE. An AP story today reported that increasing numbers of people arrested by immigration enforcement officers, ICE, have no criminal backgrounds. So 65% of arrests October to December had criminal records compared to 82% in the last 3 months of the Obama administration. So you can see a shift where they are beginning to target even those who come to attention not through any kind of criminal means. What kind of impact are you seeing that have?
Well, I mean, obviously that is, you know, further criminalizing people of color. And we're specifically, black leaders are going tomorrow to Washington, D.C. to make sure that it is clear that this is not just about one particular group of people of color, not just the Mexican community or Latino descent, but also black folks, people of African descent who are, you know, TPS is not protected under what we saw happen today. So we still have some very serious issues, and criminalizing people of color is a very, very dangerous issue that we see in so many different areas, which is why we've asked black leaders to take some time to really focus on looking at immigration in all of its prisms, from all of the different sides.
One of the cases I wanted to ask you about was a case of a member of a North Carolina Baptist church being deported to the Republic of Congo. He was denied humanitarian parole. Are you seeing more evidence that people of color, especially black immigrants, are being targeted by ICE?
Yeah, and so I don't know the exact numbers, but I have been working with UndocuBlack, which is an organization that's really been on this issue, looking at black immigration, and they have been talking about the number of people, black people, who have been targeted by ICE and how those numbers are extremely high. And so again, we know that black folks in general, when coming in contact with the criminal justice system, we've seen how startling the numbers can be. And so as with every other area, we believe that in this area, we also will see some very serious civil and human rights violations when you begin to sort of pull back those numbers and really sort of digest what's happening there.
What kind of action are you calling for tomorrow in your March in Washington?
So we have our demands that are very clear. We want to make sure that there's a Clean Dream Act. I mean, there is a list of demands that people can find on the Women's March website, but it's really important that there be a Clean Dream Act and that TPS is also protected. Those are just two very specific issues that we need folks to really be able to speak to and wrap their heads around.
So when we talk about a Clean Dream Act, you mean an act to protect the DACA recipients, that is completely separate from any other of the immigration agenda, whether it's the border wall, increased background checks, anything of that nature.
Obviously, we don't want a wall, but it is very specific, and we need to be very focused on DACA protection and ensuring, you know, that we move to a place where our immigrants, folks who are here, particularly young people, actually have permanent status. So that is something that we're being very, very focused on.
Now, of the nearly, I guess about 2 million, it's believed, undocumented young immigrants, who are people who were brought to the U.S. before, I think, 2007, before the age of 15. So kind of a complicated category. There is a large number, almost 2/3 of those, who did not register for DACA. What happens to them?
So we want to, there are a lot of groups that are actually working on that. And I think, when we talk about the black immigration issue, there's about 60,000 black people who are also in danger under this particular effort that is happening right now. And so registration for people, making sure that folks are, and thank God this March 5th deadline is no longer an issue, because we do need to make sure that people are actually registered. So that is something that many of the groups are working on. Many coalitions are involved in that work.
So as we now know, the March 5th deadline, as you said, has gone away. It does push it down the road, perhaps for a year. But given the dysfunction that we have seen in Congress, especially around issues related to immigration, and given that we're in a relatively short session at the moment, what do you think the chances are for really advancing this?
I mean, I think we do have a good chance because, as we see with the gun control issue right now, young people are really fighting for themselves and speaking up. And I think that that is a very positive sign. We're not speaking on their behalf. They are actually speaking for themselves. And we know that our dreamers are particularly very serious about ensuring their rights. And so I think that we will see something happen here. But I do believe that folks who have sort of siloed this issue, that this is not about us. I'm not Mexican, so therefore I don't care. When we begin to see ourselves in this, it will make more people, whether they be leaders or laymen, get involved. And so I do think we have an opportunity here. But again, it is going to be very important that we're focused and that people really, really fight like hell on this issue.
Can I ask you, from your perspective, as being one of the leaders of the Women's March, when you look at these young people who are now organizing and coming forward on issues related to gun control, what's the most important thing that you learned through that whole process that you would like them to know?
I mean, I think that they need to understand that right now there's a lot of spotlight and attention, and it feels good to know that people are with you. But there will be moments that you feel like you're isolated and like the cameras have turned off and people are not present. And that's when you actually have to level up and rev up your activism and really be out there. And those moments can be very frustrating. And for people who are not, really committed, they can sort of go away. And so I hope that they understand that it's going to be, some real discipline will be necessary, and they will have to be able to stick through the tough times, because there will definitely be a tough time coming.
And what's next for the Women's March? Where do you want to take that?
So with all these issues, you talk about DACA, you talk about gun control, so many issues. We've launched a campaign called Power to the Polls. I'm a person who loves to argue. If you start an argument right now, I could talk for hours. But what I've learned is that arguing with elected officials gets nothing done. We have to be able to hire and fire people who are not working on our behalf, or put people in place who will. And so we're registering 1 million voters across the country over the next year, and we're going to be doing a lot of GOTV efforts, getting out the vote for the midterm elections. All roads lead to the midterm elections. 2018 is our year to push back on this administration and all of the craziness that we've seen coming out of it.
Let me ask you, when you talk about registering voters, let me ask you about voter suppression.
Yes.
How are you seeing that play out?
And so that's, we have a sort of like a guide for places that we intend to really concentrate on in terms of voter registration and GOTV. And voter suppression is one of those big categories for us. We're going to be looking at places where we know the vote has been suppressed in many different ways, and ensuring that we are registering people and educating them in those areas. People who are formerly incarcerated that believe that because they have a felony conviction that they can't vote, and their state actually has restored their voting rights. We're going to be reaching out to those people. And folks who are in trouble, in terms of losing these social programs that this administration continuously tries to attack, we want those people to speak on your own behalf at the voting booth. We want them to go and make sure that it's not just about posting and crying and even protesting, but that they are actually showing those who are responsible for doing the people's business that you can't have my vote or my time or my dollars if you don't do the job on my behalf.
Tamika Mallory, thanks so much. We'll look forward to seeing what happens tomorrow.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.